Section 12, Chapters 9 through 14 of Aids to Forensic Medicine and Toxicology. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Aids to Forensic Medicine and Toxicology by W.D. Aitchison Robertson. Chapter 9. The Mineral Acids. These are sulfuric, nitric, and hydrochloric acids. Symptoms of poisoning by the mineral acids. Acid taste in the mouth, with violent burning pain extending into the esophagus and stomach, and commencing immediately on the poison being swallowed. Eructations, constant retching, and vomiting of brown, black, or yellow matter containing blood, coagulated mucus, epithelium, or portions of the lining membrane of the gullet and stomach. The vomited matters are strongly acid in reaction, and stain articles of clothing on which they may fall. There is intense thirst and constipation, with scanty or suppressed urine, tenesmus, and small and frequent pulse. The lips, tongue, and inside of the mouth are shriveled and corroded. Exhaustion succeeds, and the patient dies either collapsed, convulsed, or suffocated, the intellect remaining clear to the last. After recovering from the acute form of poisoning, the patient may ultimately die from starvation due to stricture of the esophagus, stomach, etc. Post-mortem appearances common to the mineral acids. Stains and corrosions about the mouth, chin, and fingers, or wherever the acid has come in contact. The inside of the mouth, fauces, and esophagus is white and corroded, yellow or dark brown, and shriveled. Epiglottis contracted or swollen. Stomach filled with brown, yellow, or black glutinous liquid. Its lining membrane is charred or inflamed, and the vessels are injected. Pylorus contracted. Perforation, when it takes place, is on the posterior aspect. The apertures are circular and surrounded by inflammation and black extravasation. The blood in the large vessels may be coagulated. Avoid mistaking gastric or duodenal ulcer, with or without perforation, for the effects of a corrosive poison. Treatment. Calcined magnesia, or the carbonate or bicarbonate of sodium mixed with milk or some mucilaginous liquid, are the best antidotes. In the absence of these, chalk, whiting, milk, oil, soap suds, etc. will be found of service. The stomach pump should not be used. If the breathing is impeded, tracheotomy may be necessary. Injuries of external parts by the acid must be treated as burns. Chapter 10. Sulfuric acid. Sulfuric acid or oil of vitriol may be concentrated or diluted. It is frequently thrown over the person to disfigure the features or destroy the clothes. Parts of the body touched by it are stained, first white, then dark brown or black. The presence of corrosion of the mouth is as important as the chemical tests. Black woolen cloths are turned to a dirty brown, the edges of the spots becoming red in a few days. Due to the dilution of the acid from the absorption of moisture, the stains remain damp for long, owing to the hygroscopic property of the acid. Method of extraction from the stomach. The contents of the stomach or vomited matter should, if necessary, be diluted with pure distilled water and filtered. The stomach should be cut up into small pieces and boiled for some time in water. The solution, filtered and concentrated, is now ready for testing. Blood, milk, etc. may be separated by dialysis, and the fluid so obtained tested. A sulfate may be present. Take a portion of the liquid, evaporate to dryness, and incinerate. A sulfate, if present, will be obtained and may be tested. Caution. Sulfuric acid may not be found even after large doses due to treatment, vomiting, or survival for several days. In all cases, every organ should be examined. Vomited matters and contents of stomach should not be mixed, but each separately examined. This rule holds good for all poisons. On cloth, the stain may be cut out, boiled in water, the solution filtered, and tested with blue litmus and other tests. Post-mortem appearances. Where the acid has come in contact with the mucous membranes, there are dark brown or black patches. The stomach is greatly contracted, the summits of the mucous membrane ridges being charred, and the furrows greatly inflamed. The contents are black or brown. Tests. Concentrated acid chars organic matter, evolves heat when added to water, and sulfurous fumes when boiled with chips of wood, copper cuttings, or mercury. Dilute acid chars paper when the paper is heated, gives a white precipitate with nitrate or chloride of barium, and is entirely volatilized by heat. Dilute solutions give a white precipitate with barium nitrate, insoluble in hydrochloric acid even on boiling. Fatal dose. In an adult, 1 drachm. Fatal period. Shortest, 3/4 of an hour. Average period from onset of primary effects, 18 to 24 hours. Chapter 11. Nitric acid. Nitric acid, or aqua fortis, is less frequently used as a poison than sulfuric acid. The fumes from nitric acid have caused death from pneumonia in 10 or 12 hours. Method of extraction from the stomach. The same as for sulfuric acid. In beer, etc., the mixture may be neutralized with carbonate of potassium, dialyzed, the fluid concentrated and allowed to crystallize, when crystals of nitrate of potassium may be recognized. Post-mortem appearance. The mucous membranes are rendered yellow or greenish if bile be present. They are also thickened and hardened. Tests. Concentrated acid gives off irritating orange-colored fumes of nitric acid gas. When poured on copper, it gives off red fumes and leaves a green solution of nitrate of copper. It gives a red color with brucine, turns the green sulfate of iron black, and with hydrochloric acid dissolves gold. A delicate test for the acid, free or in combination, is to dissolve in the suspected fluid some crystals of ferrous sulfate, and then to gently pour down the test tube some strong sulfuric acid. Where the two liquids meet, if nitric acid be present, a reddish-brown ring will be formed. It turns the skin bright yellow, and does the same with woolen clothes, from the formation of picric acid. Fatal dose, 2 drachms. Fatal period. Shortest, 1 hour and 3/4 in an adult. In infants, in a few minutes, from suffocation. Chapter 12. Hydrochloric acid. Hydrochloric acid, muriatic acid, or spirit of salt, is not uncommonly used for suicidal purposes, being 5th in the list. Method of extraction from the stomach. The same as for sulfuric acid. As hydrochloric acid is a constituent of the gastric juice, the signs of the acid must be looked for. Post-mortem appearances. The mucous membranes are dry, white, and shriveled, and often eroded. Tests. The concentrated acid yields dense white fumes with ammonia. When warmed with black oxide of manganese and strong sulfuric acid, it gives off chlorine, recognized by its smell and bleaching properties. Diluted, it gives with nitrate of silver a white precipitate, which is insoluble in nitric acid and in caustic potash, but is soluble in ammonia, and when dried and heated melts and forms a horny mass. Stains on clothing are reddish-brown in color. Fatal dose, 1/2 ounce. Fatal period, shortest 2 hours, average 24 hours. Death may occur after an interval of some weeks from destruction of the gastric glands and inability to digest food. Chapter 13. Oxalic acid. Oxalic acid is used by suicides, though not often by murderers. The crystals closely resemble those of Epsom salts or sulfate of zinc. Oxalic acid has been taken in mistake for the former. It is in common use for cleansing brass, in laundry work, for dyeing purposes, and especially for bleaching straw hats. Symptoms. If a concentrated solution be taken, it acts as a corrosive, causing a burning acid, intensely sour taste, which comes on immediately, great pain and tenderness and burning at pit of stomach, pain and tightness in throat, vomiting of mucus, bloody or dark coffee ground matters, purging and tenesmus, followed by collapse, feeble pulse, cyanosis, and pallor of the skin, also swelling of tongue with dysphagia. In some cases, cramps and numbness in limbs, pain in head and back, delirium and convulsions. May be tetanus or coma. If taken freely diluted, the nervous symptoms predominate and may resemble narcotic poisoning, sometimes almost instant death. Post-mortem appearances. Mucous membranes of mouth, throat, and gullet, white and softened, as if they had been boiled. There are often black or brown streaks in it. Stomach contains dark, grumous matter and is soft, pale, and brittle. Intestines slightly inflamed. Stomach sometimes quite healthy. Treatment. Warm water, then chalk, carbonate of magnesium or lime water, freely. Not alkalis, as the oxalates of the alkalis are soluble and poisonous. Castor oil. Emetics, but not stomach pump. Fatal dose. 1 drachm is the smallest, but 1/2 ounce is usually fatal. Method of extraction from the stomach. Mince up the coats of the stomach and boil them in water, or boil the contents of the stomach and subject them to dialysis. Concentrate the distilled water outside the tube containing the vomited matters, etc., and apply tests. Tests. White precipitate with nitrate of silver. Soluble in nitric acid and ammonia. When the precipitate is dried and heated on platinum foil, it disperses as white vapor with slight detonation. Sulfate of lime in excess gives a white precipitate, soluble in nitric or hydrochloric acid, but insoluble in oxalic, tartaric, acetic, or any vegetable acid. Oxalate or binoxalate of potash. Salts of sorrel or salts of lemon is almost as poisonous as the acid itself. Chapter 14. Carbolic acid. Carbolic acid, phenic acid, or phenol is largely employed as a disinfectant and is often supplied in ordinary beer bottles without labels. Symptoms. An intense burning pain extending from the mouth to the stomach and intestines. Indications of collapse soon supervene. The skin is cold and clammy, and the lips, eyelids, and ears are livid. This is followed by insensibility, coma, stertorous breathing, abolition of reflex movements, hurried and shallowed respiration, and death. The pupils are usually contracted, and the urine, if not suppressed, is dark in color or even black. Patients often improve for a time and then die suddenly from collapse. When the poison has been absorbed through the skin or mucous membranes, a mild form of delirium with great weakness and lividity are the first signs. Post-mortem. If strong acid has been swallowed, the lips and mucous membranes are hardened, whitened, and corrugated. In the stomach, the tops of the folds are whitened and eroded, while the furrows are intensely inflamed. Treatment. Soluble sulfates, which form harmless sulfocarbolates in the blood, should be administered at once. An ounce of Epsom salts or Glauber's salts dissolved in a pint of water will answer the purpose admirably. After this, an emetic of sulfate of zinc may be given. White of egg and water or olive oil may prove useful. Warmth should be applied to the body. Fatal dose. 1 drachm, but recovery has taken place after much larger quantities if well diluted or taken after a meal. Tests are not necessary, as the smell of carbolic acid is characteristic. Local action of carbolic acid produces anesthesia and necrosis. Accidents sometimes happen from too strong lotions applied as surgical dressings. Lysol is a compound of cresol and linseed oil soap and is much less toxic than carbolic acid. End of section 12, chapters 9 through 14.